Hey everybody, it's Gil. Welcome back to another Friday video on the Sailing Vessel Dream Chaser channel. And in last week's video, I went ahead and mentioned that I am getting bored without the boat here. I'm looking for projects to do until it gets here. And I made something called the tumbler turner. And some of the comments down below were, what the heck is a tumbler turner? Well, let me show you. Because I'm looking for projects, I decided to get a little crafty. I hijacked my wife's Cricut machine. If you don't know what that is, it looks kind of like a printer, but it's designed to cut out paper and or vinyl so you can make designs. So what I intend to do here is actually make some epoxy covered stainless steel double walled tumblers with our friend's boat name and boat logo on them. Thought it'd be a kind of a cool gift. They got a new boat, it'd be a neat thing to go ahead and do. So let me show you the software real quick. I'm not going to make this all about how to actually design an actual pattern or a logo from a photo. If it's something you're interested in, leave a comment down below that you'd like to see it, and I can go ahead and do a follow-up video on how to do that. There's a couple of nuances for making sure that you get logos that look really good when you're doing on a Cricut machine or any other type of machine that's not just a standard printer. For example, we have an embroidery machine, and we actually designed our boat logo for shirts for all the crew, and we did that with an embroidery machine. And you have to do a few things to an image to make them work really well with things like a Cricut, like an embroidery machine, like a CNC machine. We have something called a Carve Right years ago that we were using that would essentially carve into wood a design, and we designed a wooden electrical panel for our first boat. So it said the doghouse on the top of it, which is the boat's name. So you can do all kinds of stuff like that. But today, I'm going to show you real quick what the software looked like, and then ultimately what I've gone ahead and done. This is a 12 by 12 standard Cricut sticky back. I don't know what they call it. It has a slightly sticky texture to it. You apply the vinyl to it, and then you load it in the printer, and you load it in the Cricut, whatever it is, and you print this thing out, which essentially cuts the logo out. So now what I need to do is I need to peel this piece of vinyl off of here. There's actually two logos in here. You won't be able to see it on the camera, but if I look at it in the light just the right way, I can see where it's cut out the name of the boat and the logo. There's two of them, one on each side, and I'm going to put these on a tumbler. I'll show you what those look like here in just a second. So the next step here is remove the vinyl from this backing, set it down on the table, and then I'm going to begin doing something that the crafters will call weeding. Basically, I'm going to remove all of the material that I don't want. So if you think about it, I've cut everything out, but now I need to remove all the pieces that aren't the letters and the logo, if you will. So let me show you how we do this. Pretty easy, actually. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this off my face, and I'm going to zoom in and actually show what it looks like, because that's actually the interesting part, not all of this. I'm going to start way down here on this end. Let's see how well we can do it. So what we do is we just started the edge of this thing with this little spatula looking deal. And what I found after doing this a few times is I'm not trying to peel the vinyl off. There's a vinyl with a backing on it, and I want all of it to come off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this whole thing over while holding this corner, and then I'm going to peel the top part off, the sticky part off, as opposed to the other way around. That allows me to hold more of this thing flat as I do it. And you notice here as I'm going. All right, I now have my logo. Okay, so I've got my piece of vinyl down right here, and now what I want to do is, again, I just want to start removing the parts that I don't need. And, you know, it works well if you can sort of adjust the light a little bit to pull some of this out. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to pull the center pieces of each logo out. So this logo is actually a character. However, the character is outlined, it's not solid, so. All right, I want to take a quick look at it, make sure it looks good, and it does. Make sure everything that should be gone is gone, and I think that looks super. So now, what we need to do is put a material over the top so that we can transfer it onto something. That's what this stuff is, aptly called transfer tape. And this is going to go right on here. So pretty easy to do. Let me show you what we're going to do here. Take this transfer tape, we're going to peel a little bit of this back. We want to make really sure we're going on here nice and straight, because that's going to be critical. What I like to do is just get a little bit started. It's probably best to start in the middle, though it's challenging to do that. And then you just want to use some kind of a nice flat edge to make sure that you get all of the bumps out of this thing. You want to no air bubbles. And then I just usually use, I hold the backing of it, and then as I go, I use this little scraper to apply it down and remove it from the backing paper. By doing this, I get a good stick onto the actual logo itself. And now I'm just going to scrape this real nice. What I'm trying to do is make sure that this transfer tape is stuck to every piece of this black logo. So now I'm going to actually separate these two as well, because this is going to go on two different wine glasses. I keep saying mugs, but they're insulated wine tumblers. So there's the two logos that we're going to use, and let's go ahead and show you what we're going to apply them to. So here's what we're actually going to use and put this logo on. I bought some of these little wine tumblers. They're stainless steel, double-walled, 12-ounce tumblers. And they're kind of nice. They come with a nice little lid. These actually have a white finish, a matte finish on them, along with a non-spill lid. So you can actually get these on Amazon pretty cheap. If you want to buy more than just two at a time, you can get them real inexpensive. I think I got these for like $9 for the pair. I'll put a link to these down in the description, because honestly, if you think about it, if you already have the Cricut, this is a really inexpensive gift and a cool thing you can have done, a customized logo for somebody. I think it's pretty cool. And you could just stick the sticker on them and they're good enough. Permanent vinyl would be sufficient for hand washing for dishes. All right, with our logos already set up on transfer paper, we're now going to go ahead and just set these aside, and we're going to begin to prepare our tumbler. Kind of show you what we have here. This is just a standard 12-ounce double insulated tumbler, and we're going to go ahead and use that to put our logo on. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we know our sort of orientation and what it's going to look like, and that's about what we're going for right there. Now you'll notice, because this glass is round, you can already see I'm getting a little bit of a lip here, a little bit there. So one of the tricks you can do is begin to make a few cuts close to this, but not all the way, that will allow it to bend better onto the actual cup itself. I'm going to go ahead and do just that. You'll notice I can get this to bend a little bit easier, which is exactly what we want. Use just a little bit of alcohol, just rubbing alcohol, and we want to clean the glass. What we want is no oil from our hands on it. Peel this backing off of here. If you ever end up with this white part coming back onto the vinyl, you got to make sure you get that off of there. There we go. All right, so we now have that. Again, best thing to do is get the center of this thing where you want it. It's going to be the best way to do this. I'll show you in a second why. Okay, now that we have the center down, we want to slowly work this out from the center. That helps us keep any bubbles from forming in there. All right, as soon as we've done that, now we are going to use our little scraper again, and we're going to rub every part of this. And remember, this is a curved surface, so you got to be really diligent about this. It's not like doing this on wallpaper or something flat. What I'm doing is I'm getting the permanent adhesive on the back of the vinyl, the black vinyl, to stick to the actual tumbler or cup, or whatever the surface is you might be working with. In our case, it's a tumbler. Now, you'll notice I'm going toward these back edges because, remember I made these cuts before? Well, it's okay if we get wrinkles in the transfer tape. We don't want wrinkles, however, in the black part of the logo. That is actually what's staying when we're done with this. Everything else is going to come back up. So now we're going to do exactly what we did before with weeding it, but we're going to pull up the corner. Now what I like to do on this is I like to peel straight back, not up, almost sliding it this way, because the pressure I'm putting on here helps make sure nothing peels up. going to go down toward my section that had the cuts in it, because if there's a spot that's most vulnerable to a problem, it's likely going to be there. There we have it. And with the logo on it, it looks really nice, right? That looks good. But what I want to do is make this dishwasher safe. I want to make sure that there's no way somebody's fingernail doesn't scrape that off. Look, I could picture my grandkids. If I gave them this cup, they would just sit there picking at it because it's something to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to coat this entire thing in epoxy using that tumbler turner and get a beautiful smooth finish on it. Or at least that's the plan. Let me show you how we do it. With the logos on, it's now time to go ahead and set up the tumbler turners, prep the glasses, and let's go ahead and get a coat of epoxy on these and let that just continue to turn for about 8 hours until this clear gloss epoxy hardens and smooths out. The nice thing about it is by rotating it, we're basically going to allow that finish, the epoxy, to slowly float out in a smooth way. If we left it stationary, it would begin to run or droop or drip. Turning it prevents that from happening. So you might remember this tumbler turner from last week's video. And all I'm going to do is use a bit of a pool noodle, and I'm going to put this pool noodle right on here. And that is what's going to hold our tumbler in place. I'm just going to squeeze that down a little bit, slide it right into the tumbler. And I want to get the rim of it just beyond that because I really want to make sure that I can get the epoxy right to the edge of this. And there we go. We now have our turner turning. There's two things you're going to need for this project on the epoxy side. You want to get some of this amazing clear cast. You can buy it at a hobby store. It's definitely different than the epoxy we use on the boat. This is an amazingly clear one, like what they do countertops with. And then you're also going to want to use a heat gun. The purpose of a heat gun is, as you mix the epoxy, you'll tend to incorporate little tiny micro bubbles into the material. And given that we want this to be a glass-like shine and finish, we need a way to pop those bubbles. And a heat gun does a great job of doing this. We've done this trick even on the boat. And I would say buy a cheap one. I'll put a link to one down below that's under 20 bucks. You can always use these things for other things. It's a handy little thing to have. You could probably get away with a little kitchen torch as long as you moved it really fast, because you do not want to put this heat gun on for more than a couple of seconds. Just kind of quickly move it. All you're trying to do is heat it up enough that the air bubbles rise and pop. Like almost all epoxies, there's going to be a resin and a hardener, and in this case it's an A and B for this particular brand. The nice thing is it's a 50-50 mix, so you want the exact same of each of these two items in your cup. They come with some little tiny cups here of milliliter measurements. I think I'm only going to do 15 milliliters, which is probably way more than I need, but that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And when you pour this in, you want to mix it thoroughly. I would encourage you to wear gloves, not latex. You use nitrile gloves. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this by pouring this. There's some markings on here, so we're going to get our head down nice and low. I will say I find it a little easier to pour the part B first. The key to mixing epoxy, you want to mix epoxy slow. You do not want to incorporate a ton of air bubbles into it. Like I said, we're going to get some anyway. You really want to be cautious. And as you mix this, you'll notice it starts getting cloudy. And we're going to continue to mix it 2 to 3 minutes. It's a long mix time. And we want to do that until it begins to get crystal clear again, which tells us that the hardener and the resin have completely mixed together. We're just going to begin pouring some of this on. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of work it up the glass like this. What I'm doing is I'm feeling for spots where it doesn't feel like it's coated real good, like right in that area. And there's no rush, it's going to come back around, so we'll get to it. So I went ahead and let this thing turn for probably 4 to 6 hours. I came out repeatedly and would just sort of take the back of my finger and just touch the bottom of the cup, where if I got a little bit of a smudge, I wouldn't be so worried. But what I was testing was the tackiness of the resin. What's interesting though is I did this out of MDF, and I noticed these little motors get hot. I was actually nervous. I was gonna let it run all night, and I got a little nervous at just how warm it was. Even when I felt the wood on the inside of this, it was not hot, but warm to the touch, and I just didn't want to chance, potentially that thing getting so hot it could heat this up and cause a fire. But what I have found is running them for 5 to 6 hours was okay. I did this now a couple of different times. I've made several of these tumblers. Actually made a mistake on one. One of these had fallen. It had come off the shaft and had fallen and sat on the paper towel, and the paper towel I had below it instead of this cardboard adhered to it. And I went ahead and pulled that off of there, and when it dried, I sanded it all down, and I went ahead and put a new coat on it, and you cannot even tell. So yeah, let me show you kind of what we need to do to go ahead and remove this. We just pull this off of there, remove our piece of pool noodle that holds this on, and you use whatever's going to fit your tumbler. These thick pool noodles seem to be perfect for these little wine tumblers. So the only thing we need to do now is clean up the rim of this, and I do that with a little razor blade and just scrape the edge. But look at that. That is a good looking mug, and it's unbelievably glossy. And where I had an issue back here where that paper towel was stuck to it, I sanded it all down. We'll say you can't see it. Well, I might have been able to sand it a little bit better right here. If I hold it in the light just right, I can see a little bit of a ripple there. I think our friends on Nauticat will appreciate the cups to go ahead and match their new boat. This will be neat. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this was my first time ever doing this, so just to give you some perspective, it's just not hard to do. Especially if you've ever done anything with epoxy, you sort of have some of the basic principles down. If you don't, I gave them to you in this very video earlier. You can certainly do this easily enough. Anyway, we'll see you guys. I know it's not a boat project, but it is a project, and it's for somebody with a boat. There's my tie-in. Safe sailing, everybody. Have a great week. Bye now.